Hey everybody, it's Mr. Richard here. I got my son Dane with me. Last time we were on here together. Can you say hi, Dane? First off,
Hi.
hey, wave, Dane.
Hi.
All right, Dane's in fourth grade, and it just so happens he's already read the masterpiece. That's the book we were reading together. Um, we've already read chapter one and two. Um, if you remember, Mrs. Pompaday had lost one of her contact lenses, and Marvin dove down into the sink to get it, and he came out and all that nastiness. So we're gonna go ahead and do chapter three. It's about a 12-page chapter, so that's about all we'll do today, just that one. And Dane's gonna help me read it today, if you guys don't mind. And we're just gonna have some fun, and we'll just go ahead and get started. We're gonna take turns reading, and we'll go ahead and chapter three is called the birthday party. So the next day was Saturday, James's birthday. There was to be a party, a large one, and the Pompaday's dining room was festooned with streamers. So festoon just means it was just filled. There was a lot of like streamers and balloons there. So as Marvin and his parents foraged for breakfast under the kitchen table, they listened to the plans. I don't want those boys eating in the living room, Mrs. Pompaday told James. Make sure they stay at the table when it's time for the cake. But Mom, James said, I can't tell them what to do. They're not even my friends. William banged deafeningly on his high chair. So deafeningly means he banged so loud it like almost hurt your ears. Has anybody ever had that happen? You ever heard a noise that was so loud it just hurt? So he banged definitely on his high chair tray with a spoon and crowed at James. Yeah, 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 yeah. From what Marvin could tell, this was the word for James in William's very limited but forceful language. What a big boy you are, Mrs. Pompaday crooned, wiping the baby's face with a washcloth. She turned to James. What do you mean they're not your friends? Why? The Fentons live right upstairs. You see Max every day.
James sighed. They're very important clients of mine, the Fentons. I've got several referrals for them. And you know, that's the heart of my business. Word of mouth. Below the table, Mama and Papa looked at each other and rolled their eyes. So I hope you'll treat Max nicely, dear. Miss Pompaday continued. Mama shook her head, whispering, clients. Will he have a single one of his own friends at the party? She asked. Of course not, Papa replied. Marvin had seen enough of Miss Pompaday's parties to know that his parents were right. Whatever the occasion, the guest list was always a loose assemblage of people.
So real quick, Dane, assemblage means was a gathering of people. So that's what an assemblage means. There's a few tough words in here. They're more than like fourth, fifth, and sixth. But assemblage, that means it's just people that have gathered together. Okay.
Assemblage of people she worked with or wanted to work with,
And for the entire party, Mrs. Pompaday would float fawningly from one person to the next, confiding self-important tips about the Manhattan real estate market. Mrs. Pompaday plucked William from the high chair and said encouragingly, We have a magician, remember? You know how you love magic, James. James hesitated. Mom, don't you think that's the kind of thing people had at a little kid's party? Nonsense, dear. Everyone loves magicians. They're like clowns. Marvin personally hated clowns, which he had seen in abundance. Abundance means he's seen a lot of on television because Mr. Pompaday had an odd fascination with the circus. Clowns struck Marvin as scary and untrustworthy, with their painted faces and exaggerated expressions, always trying to get strangers to laugh. The Beatles had learned most of what they knew about the outside world from the Pompaday's endless stream of television shows. Mrs. Pompaday's favorite were hospital dramas or soap operas, while Mr. Pompaday preferred long documentaries on the obscure topics. James liked cartoons, which Marvin found colorful and quite satisfying, especially when they featured a heroic or particularly energetic insect. The best thing about television in the Pompadour household was that the Pompadours tended to snack while they watched their shows, so the Beatles could count on a veritable smorgasbord of popcorn kernels, raisins, and potato chip crumbs at the end of the evening. So veritable smorgasbord. A smorgasbord is like a buffet. Means you had a big thing. So if your parents put a bunch of food on there, that's called that would be a smorgasbord of food. All right, Dane. No.
Marvin watched James, who was giggling a sneaker. Mom, James said, "Do you think Dad will come?" "I don't know, James. He said he'd try, but it's going to be a wonderful party. You'll see." Miss Pompadour swept over and kissed the top of his head. "Stop mopping. It's your birthday. Come help me with the goodie bags." James' father was an artist, the maker of large abstract paintings, one of which, a mostly blue canvas called Horse, huge above the couch in the living room. It was a constant source of
Where is it? Of tension
between Miss Pompadour and her second husband. "I don't see why I have to look at that every night," Mr. Pompadour would complain. "It doesn't look anything like a horse. It doesn't even look like an animal. James could have painted that." Miss Pompadour's answer was always the same. "Oh, stop. It goes with the rug. Do you know how hard it is to match an Oriental?" Marvin secretly admired the painting very much. He sometimes climbed all the way up the brass floor lamp for a better view of the bold blue streak at its center. While the painting didn't look like a horse, it felt like a horse, fast and graceful and free. "What can we give James for his birthday?" he asked his parents, as they lugged 2 cereal flakes and a crumb of buttered toast back to the cupboard. "It has to be something great." "Look in the treasure box," Mama said. "I'm sure you'll find the perfect thing."
Right. Good job, Dane. The treasure box was open, the velvet earring case that had been very difficult indeed to push and tug into the Beatles' home. It was filled with the kinds of tiny things humans tended to drop or misplace, items that rolled under the furniture, got caught in the cracks between the floorboards, or, as William became more dexterous, the things he enjoyed sticking through the grates of the heating vents. Right now, the treasure box contained a few paper clips, 2 coins, a button, the gold clasp from a necklace, the slender silver bar that once held a watch strap in place, a small eraser, a pen cap, and the most prized object of all, a single pearl earring. The Beatles happened to know that the pearl earring found in the wreckage of the Pompadour's annual holiday party belonged to a favorite client of Mrs. Pompadour's, who had called the next day in a tizzy over its loss. A tizzy means you ever just kind of really upset, you kind of just throw a fit. Has anybody in our class ever thrown a fit? No way, right? All right. So generally, Mama felt strong that particularly valuable items should be returned to their human owners, which just meant that the Beatles carried them to some obvious spot in the house and left them in full view, where they would inevitably be discovered and exclaimed over in relief. However, in this case, Mr. and Mrs. Pompadour had been so unpleasant to James in the wake of the party, berating him for a china plate that he accidentally dropped when his mother asked him to clear the dishes, that the Beatles were not inclined to return to the pearl earring. "I don't think there's anything good for James in the treasure box," Marvin said worriedly. "None of that stuff is his."
"Does he have any electronics in need of repair?" Does he have any electronics in need of repair? Mama asked. "Clock, radio, boombox? I'm sure Albert would be happy to tinker with something for him." Uncle Albert had trained as an electrician, a particularly useful skill in the Pompadours' aging apartment. He'd been known to fix the faulty wiring in their
and thermostat. The thermostat is like the thing that keeps your house. It helps control what your heat or your temperature in your house is going to be, so it stays hot or cold.
On more than one occasion. Though he sometimes raised the apartment's heat to insufferable levels in the process. Tricky businesses, thermostats, he always said. No, I don't think so, Marvin answered. I haven't heard him complain about anything. Although he realized James wasn't really the type of complain. What about one of the coins in the treasure box? Papa suggested. I think they're a buffalo nickel. Marvin thought about that. Would James even notice that it was a special nickel? Probably. James was the type to notice things. Maybe he said, if we can't find anything better. The party was a
boisterous disaster. That means it was a really crazy thing. It didn't go the way the Pompadours planned.
Mr. Pompadour was dispatched to the park with William, while 11 energetic boys, none of whom paid any particular attention to James, raced through the apartment. They dumped elaborately wrapped presents on the sideboard, then
stampeded. That means they just ran around. They just acted like they were big herds of cows or horses or something.
Then stampeded from room to room, whooping loudly. They broke a knob off the stereo. They spilled soda on the dining room rug. They locked a small, nervous boy named Simon in James' closet without anyone
realizing he was missing. When the magician arrived, they gleefully tormented him, yelling out spoilers. It's in his other hand, I saw it, as he performed his tricks. One boy dug around in the leather bag of props when the magician wasn't watching and triumphantly brandished a set of handcuffs. So those big words, triumphantly brandished, that means he grabbed him and he was successful at sneaking to get him. So he said, let's play jail. Marvin watched the whole affair from a safe vantage point behind the skirt of the living room couch. Sneakers pounded past him, squeaking on the wood floors. He kept warily out of sight, heeding Mama's warning. Whatever you do, darling, don't let them see you. These are the kind of boys who'd pull the legs off a beetle just for the fun of it. It was an oft-repeated adage among the beetles that human parties were no place for their kind. Marvin remembered all too clearly the fate of his grandfather, who'd been crushed by a stiletto heel while pursuing a bacon bit during the Pompadours meeting the neighbor's party. From behind the skirting, Marvin could see James sitting quietly on the sideline. Mrs. Pompadour kept prodding him in exasperation. James, don't just sit there like that. Show the boys your new computer. James thanked Henry for his lovely red sweater. It will be perfect for Valentine's Day. James, tell Max about the wonderful time he had skating last week at the Rockefeller Center Ring. Max, we'd love to go there on weekend afternoons when there
aren't so many tourists. We'll bring you with us next time, shall we? From a past conversation, Marvin knew that the Pompadours had been to the rink exactly once. That Miss Pompadour had dropped James off while she went across the street to Saks to buy a wedding present. And that James, who didn't know how to skate, had spent the hour clinging to the sidewall unsteadily, making his way around the circle while more experienced skaters zipped past. The doorbell rang, and Miss Pompadour clapped her hands, smiling brightly. Look at the time. Your parents are here, boys. She herded them toward the entryway. Come get your goodie bags, James dear. stand by the door, and hand them out. Marvin, risking exposure, darted along the baseboard to the marble-floored foyer. When Miss Pompaday opened the door, however, it wasn't the hoped-for
cavalcade of parents. A cavalcade is all the parent, like if you have a bunch of parents coming to pick up their kids, like when we're releasing you guys to the bus or to student pickup. That's the cavalcade. All the parents are coming.
It was Carl Tarrick, James' father. Miss Pompaday stepped back in disappointment. "Oh," she said, "Carl." The other boys thundered away in indifference. James' whole face lit up. "Dad, you came!" James' father was a big man with longish brown hair and a messy scruff of beard. He had a warm, gentle smile that Marvin liked because it was spread across his face so slowly that it had to be real. "Hey, buddy," he said to James. "Of course I came. It's your birthday."
Of course I came. It's your birthday. He grabbed James by both shoulders and wrapped him in a hug. "You can come in for a minute," Mrs. Pompaday said crisply, "but the boys are about to be picked up and I need James to hand out the goodie bags while I speak to their parents." "Cutting deals?" Carl asked, still smiling. "No, no," Mrs. Pompaday said dismissively, then added in a lower voice, "but you'll see that Meredith Steinberg's son is here, and they're in the market for a classic 6, so it certainly wouldn't hurt for me to say a few words to her." Marvin had often wondered how someone like Carl Tarrick could have ever been married to Mrs. Pompaday. They seemed profoundly different. Profoundly means very. They just seemed really different. And he'd overheard James ask his father a similar question once, hesitantly, as if he wasn't quite sure he wanted to hear the answer. Carl had said simply, "Your mother has excellent taste. She always did. From the day I met her, an eye for a beauty and is a rare thing." Good taste to Marvin didn't seem like much of a foundation for love. Then again, it had turned out not to be. Carl was ruffling James' hair with one hand. "I brought you something," he said, setting a crumpled plastic shopping bag on the hallway table. Marvin edged away from the baseboard, trying to see what was it. What would James want it to be? James grinned at his father and reached inside. He drew out a small navy blue box, which he opened carefully. "Oh," he said. Marvin climbed quickly up the slippery, polished table legs to have a look. The box contained a squat glass bottle filled with dark liquid. "It's ink," said Carl. James said nothing. Turning it over in his hand, Marvin could tell he was very disappointed. "It's a pen and ink set for drawing." Carl rustled in the bag and pulled out a flat black case. "Here's the pen."
"Here's the pen. Look, your initials, so everyone will know it's yours." Marvin could see that there were 3 crisp gold letters on the top. "And I got you a pad of good paper, too," Carl added. James titled.
James tilted. So he like when you go to take a drink, you tilt it back to your mouth.
James tilted the bottle of ink, watching the liquid shift inside, catching the light. "Cool," he said. He looked up at his father. "Thanks, Dad. It's really cool." "Is that permanent ink?" Miss Pompaday demanded. "Does it stain?" "Well, yes. That's what you use for pen and ink drawings." Miss Pompaday sighed. "It had better stay in your room, James, on your desk. I don't want ink splattered all over the house." She shook her head. "Really, Carl? That doesn't seem a very appropriate gift for an 11-year-old. Carl shifted uncomfortably. "He'll be careful with it. You know that. James is careful with everything." Miss Pompaday snorted.
So snorted means she just kind of went, "Yeah, whatever."
"It will be fun for him to experiment," Carl said, looping one arm over James' narrow shoulders and pulling him close. "Look at the pen, buddy." James lifted the pen and unscrewed the cap. Marvin could see that the pen was slim and elegant. with a delicate silver nib. Wow, James said clearly, trying to muster some enthusiasm.
Good job.
This is how you fill it, Carl said, demonstrating what the position of your hand while you're drawing.
So watch the position of your hand while you're drawing so you don't smear the ink. It'll take a while to get the hang of it. The doorbell rang again. Oh, here they are, Mrs. Pompaday cried. Boys! James, hurry, get the goodie bags. She nudged Carl toward the door. You can show all this to him tomorrow when he's with you, she said. You'll pick him up at noon? Yeah, or a little after. That okay, James? James looked from his father to his mother and nodded quickly. Sure, Dad. Mrs. Pompaday pursed her lips, sweeping past him. Well, I'd like to know what time to expect you. We have plans tomorrow afternoon. If you're going to cancel like last time, you need to at least call. It isn't fair to James, and it certainly isn't fair to me. I have a life too, you know. Sorry about that, Carl said sheepishly. Stuff comes up, that's all. Mrs. Pompaday swung open the door and smiled broadly. Julie, we've had the most wonderful time. We didn't even notice it was so late. You're going to have to trouble dragging Ryan away. Oh, this is James's father, Carl Terrick. Yes, that's right, the artist. He is just leaving. So that's chapter 3. So that was the birthday party. So James had a birthday party. So just like last time, I want you guys to think of a few words maybe that I didn't go over that you heard that you really didn't understand. Just 2 or 3 of them. And I want you to discuss those with your parents or your guardian. And I want you to ask them, what do those mean? Or maybe look them up on the internet or something like that. And maybe have your parents take a picture of them and send it to me. But that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Say hi, Dane. Say bye.
Bye.
Everybody have a great day. Everybody be safe and healthy. Until next time, Chapter 4 is coming.